Hi, I'm Adam. I'm looking at Cairn 2nd Edition today in the hopes that it is my next favorite tabletop role-playing game. That's what this series is all about. I'm just going systematically reading and reviewing different games, comparing them with the criteria of what I want, and really trying hard to find my next default, my next favorite TTRPG, one that I can play for indefinitely. So Cairn 2nd Edition is a D20 game. That means it primarily uses a 20-sided die to resolve conflict and other tension points in the game. Unlike a lot of others, you roll low. The lower you roll, the better. You start with 3 attributes. That's the equivalent of ability scores in D&D. Your 3 are strength, dexterity, and willpower. When it's time to make a character, you roll 3d6 for each. You also have sort of an armor score, but it maxes out at 3. You can't have more than 3. And instead of making you harder to hit, it actually absorbs damage. So if you would have suffered 3 damage, but you have an armor score of 3, then you suffer 0, because 3 minus 3. Combat has some new things that you don't see in many other games. For example, when enemies take damage at first, and then when they're reduced to less than half their HP, then they have to use a will save or flee. They can use their leader's will save if they have a leader, but otherwise they have to use their own, and they will run away if they fail. Enemies go at the end of a round, all the PCs go first, and it looks like you just go around the table. So starting at the GM's left, you just go clockwise around the table until everyone's had a turn, and then the GM's turn. All the monsters and other adversaries go, and then it starts over. I should have said wardens instead of GMs because that's what they're called. Warden is very interesting because a warden, at least in the United States, is they're the person who runs a prison. So what that says about the game is very interesting. Also, you're supposed to imagine that even though everyone is taking their turns, the actions occur simultaneously. So that means even if you defeat the villain in a climactic battle, the villain also has a turn, because as you're swinging that killing blow, the villain could also be attacking at the same moment. The first round kind of has a surprise round mechanic, but it means that you have to pass a dexterity save or you don't get a turn. That's just for the surprise round, though. The biggest change with combat is that attacks automatically hit. You can, of course, reduce the damage dealt with your armor, but if you're close enough to an enemy and they attack you, they automatically hit, and vice versa. But it's important not to think of HP as hit points. They're actually called hit protection. So that's not a measurement of your fortitude or your health, or you're not taking damage or getting rattled or anything like that. Hit protection is kind of like armor. It's how well you're able to defend yourself. You don't actually suffer any physical wounds until your HP is at 0. And HP is easily regained. I think you take very short rests or just end the combat and your HP bounces back up again. On your turn, you can move up to 40 feet and then take an action. Pretty simple. I like the way they handled 2 weapon attacks. So if you're fighting with a weapon in one hand and a weapon in the other, you just roll 2 damage dice and then use the higher result. Another thing I should say about HP, being reduced to 0 is when you actually start taking physical damage, and being reduced to 0 automatically gives you a scar. So that is a big dose of realism, and you can actually stay in the fight when you drop below 0 HP. What you do is you pass a strength save. As long as you pass it, then you can keep going. Your strength will deteriorate the longer you stay in a fight, though. And if your strength is reduced to 0, then you're dead. If your dexterity is reduced to 0, you are paralyzed. And if your willpower is reduced to 0, you are rendered delirious. Another new thing, new to some of you, is that spells are just a single sentence or 2, and anyone can cast a spell. It certainly helps to have a spell book. Otherwise, you're suffering fatigue every time you cast a spell. But even if you don't, with practice, that fatigue can be eliminated from your spellcasting. As I said before, spells are very, very simple. For example, Detect Magic just says you hear or see magical auras nearby. That's all it says. So, in a lot of ways, the warden and the players get to decide how that affects their gameplay. Encumbrance rules are also simplified. You have 10 inventory slots, so it's not measured in pounds. And then if you have more than 10 slots filled, then your hit protection is reduced to 0. Remember, that is the ability to defend yourself. So it makes sense that if you're straining under heavy load, you're not going to be able to dodge or block a blow coming in. The last novel thing I'll mention is that there's no set character progression. Now, that doesn't mean there's no character progression at all, but if you're looking for classes... Oh, it's also classless, by the way. So your character is defined by the equipment they use and the experiences they have, not by being a ranger or a wizard or a barbarian or something. So it's classless, and you don't have a set character progression. Your character progression is measured by the experiences that you have, the stories you can tell about them, maybe the ranks in a faction that you join or something like that, but you're not going to level up, quote unquote. So could Cairn 2nd Edition be my next favorite tabletop role-playing game? I think this is one of those examples where, though I'm looking for something less mechanically complex than D&D 5th Edition, this goes too far into the simple territory. I'm looking for something between. Not having classes is fine. I'm fine with that. I've seen some promising games that do that really well. But not having character progression would be more difficult. I think that would be fine for 1 to 4 or 5 sessions of a campaign. But after that, I really feel like as a GM, I would want to reward my players with greater and greater powers that I don't have to make up all the time. But maybe Cairn 2nd Edition is for you. I found the free rules on their website. But maybe Cairn 2nd Edition is for you. I found the free rules on the cairnrpg.com website. And you can too, and that has the system reference document, which has all of the basic rules you need to play. And I'm sure you can also buy it, but I didn't do that because I found these first. But take a look for yourself and let me know what you think. I, though, am going to keep looking for my next favorite tabletop role-playing game.